Hey, DawgNation, it's Brandon Adams, the host of DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. A lot to tell you here off the top. Jeff Sintel on a Friday going to be with us just like always. Jeff's actually going to be with us a little later in our video broadcast than you normally see him. The reason why is because coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're also going to welcome in another former Georgia great from the 2017 season, Davin Bellamy. Of course, you know that Davin's going to be a part of our DawgNation appreciation coming up on Thursday. We'll talk to Davin about that. We'll also talk to Davin kind of about everything, kind of going on with the move for him from college into the NFL, what it was like to be on the Georgia team as it made a run through the college football playoff here back in 2017. Davin is a great personality, a terrific guy, and he has kind of a neat story kind of parallel to his football life in terms of what he's trying to do as a businessman here too, which I think is just sort of really cool and fun. So we'll do all that with Davin Bellamy. As you're seeing this now, we'll do that a little less than 15 minutes from right now, and that'll all be a part of our official broadcast of DawgNation Daily. Before we get into any of that, though, we had so much fun on what it would have been one of the days this week where we kind of moved the comment section that we normally do at the end of the show kind of up to the beginning. I feel like one of the things that sometimes kind of bothers me a little bit is if we do the exact same format every single day. Now, we want to keep the same format as much as we possibly can because there's some continuity that you want to establish for a DawgNation Daily. But if we do the exact same thing every single day, those of you who get a chance to watch at the beginning but don't get a chance to watch the end, maybe you have a chance to miss out on the interaction that we are a part of there. And I want to be as interactive on the show as we can be with as many people as possible. So therefore, we're going to do a few minutes of comments here before we welcome in Davin Bellamy, before we welcome in Jeff Sintel, before we do the official DawgNation Daily broadcast. We'll do some comments here. If you want to talk about the football stuff, we can do that both on Facebook and on YouTube. If you want to do a little bit on the basketball game today against Kentucky, a big SEC quarterfinal game for the Dogs after the win against Vanderbilt on Wednesday, upsetting Missouri yesterday, Georgia in a position to play Kentucky here today. By the way, for our DawgNation Daily Double a little later on today, I'm going to play some audio of an ESPN analyst who actually thinks that Georgia has maybe more of a chance of beating Kentucky than you might think. That's another reason to check out the DawgNation Daily Double. So we can talk a little bit about that right now if you want to. Pretty much anything you want to with the comments. In fact, I'll pull those up as we get ready to begin DawgNation Daily and welcome in Davin Bellamy and Jeff Sintel in a moment. Let's find out what you have to say, what you have going on here before we get a chance to do that. CJ Harding says, is Natrez Patrick coming back? CJ, that's obviously a question that we addressed yesterday on our program. The video that I thought was pretty interesting of the Georgia team at the Boys and Girls Club there in Athens, we saw a glimpse of D'Angelo Gibbs. We saw a glimpse of Natrez Patrick, and I'm going to stop short of saying that's definitive proof of anything, but I certainly think that's a strong suggestion that things are trending in the right direction for Georgia. I don't think you get that evidence if Kirby Smart didn't feel pretty good about these guys. I think that Kirby is a guy that wants to control messages. He wants to master the art of communication, and I think that by allowing those guys to be videoed, you're communicating something. I think Kirby Smart's aware of that, and I don't know that it was a subtle intended message, but it was certainly a message that Kirby Smart was okay with. Nate Thomas says, humble yourself. Yeah, listen, we're actually going to talk to Davin a lot about the humble yourself stuff here in a couple of minutes. I think that was a really fun moment from the Rose Bowl. And I got to tell you, I always say that I kind of come at this show from the perspective of a fan, and I got to admit something. From the perspective of a fan, Baker Mayfield really bothered me during the Rose Bowl. I thought that his arrogance was so over the top, and in a way that was just. It just sort of grinds the nerves, to be honest. And so when the Georgia defense kind of started getting the better of him a little bit in the second half, and when Davin Bellamy sent the message there at the end of the game, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed that. For me, y'all know that I sort of grew up a big pro wrestling fan. In fact, even still today, I sneak off and watch a little wrestling when I can. And for me, there was almost something sort of pro wrestling-like about the way the Rose Bowl unfolded. From my perspective, Georgia's the good guys, Mayfield's the heel, and eventually the good guys won, which is the way that you want a storyline to unfold. In this case, that's exactly what it was, and we're going to have a really good time with that for our DawgNation appreciation. The people that have been working so hard behind the scenes to get this thing ready, I tell you, every day I get more and more excited about what DawgNation appreciation is going to look like and some of the multimedia ways in which we're going to kind of celebrate the 2017 season. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, you got to get them right now because DawgNation appreciation on Thursday is going to be fantastic. Cleet McAllister says, when Jeff Sintel's on the program later on, ask him about the top defensive tackle we're going after, any chance of the situation out of Louisiana. So I will say this on defensive tackle. Jeff and I both talked about this on Tuesday, that when you think about, the biggest name of all, for Georgia in terms of uncommitted players for the entire 2019 class, and certainly from the state of Georgia, Trayvon Walker is the name that comes up here. He's the kind of defensive tackle, potentially the big athletic guy that seems to be the hallmark of really good national championship level teams. He's the kind of guy that exists in the state of Georgia for 2019 in a way that was not true for 2018. 2018 was not a deep year nationally for defensive tackles. Georgia, in particular, 2019 probably a little bit better, and Walker is an example of that. When you start thinking about Georgia's biggest position of need, when you start thinking about really interesting non-committed prospects, the intersection for both those guys is Trayvon Walker, and that's a name here on DawgNation Daily. I'm going to go ahead and warn you, we're going to talk about that young man a lot. Bridget Bellamy says shirts will be sold on Thursday at the banquet. The hashtag Humble Yourself. Bridget, that's exactly right. Davin's going to be there selling those Humble Yourself t-shirts, and with the purchase of a Humble Yourself t-shirt at DawgNation Appreciation, you can also get an autograph from Davin Bellamy. He'll either sign your Humble Yourself t-shirt. You can also bring an outside item in while time allows to get Davin to assign that as well. That's one of the reasons why we're really excited about having Davin Bellamy at DawgNation Appreciation. Y'all asked for it, and you're getting it. Davin Bellamy going to be on hand. Going to be a lot of fun on that. Santiago D. Yarn says, my favorite Rose Bowl memory was seeing B.A. holding the newspaper and calling out Oklahoma. Yeah, we showed that video a couple times here on DawgNation Daily. I don't know if that was my finest moment necessarily, but it was fun nonetheless. And, I mean, you can ask Jeff Sintel. We were on that field in Pasadena. I'm talking about late because the game was relatively early, but, after it was over with, we did the post-game show. We kind of hung around, and, we're out there on the field taking pictures and talking, and I'm talking about they had basically turned the lights on the entire stadium. They had basically flipped the switch on everything, and I didn't want to leave. I had that DawgNation Field Edition in my hand. I had those roses that the Georgia players had left over from their celebration, and I was holding on to both like they were my children, and I did not want to leave Pasadena, California that night. We stayed there very late. At one point in time, Jeff was like, can we please just get out of here now? And I kept stopping to take pictures of everything. It's like being at Disney World. I'm taking a picture on the field. I'm taking more pictures in front of the Rose Bowl sign. That was one of those deals that I just wanted to soak that up as long as I possibly could. Yeah, so Santiago, I appreciate you remembering that. Randy Hall asking about Rambo Hunter. This isn't something else that we talked about with Jeff on Tuesday, and we'll keep talking about this a lot. What Jeff is saying about Derek Hunter is the defensive end from down in Florida is that he's a little bit like Malik Herring might have been for the class of 2017. Jeff is calling him the most committed, uncommitted player in the entire country. That Rambo loves Georgia, but he's not an official UGA commit. One of the confusing things about Rambo is that he tweets about Georgia a lot, and his Twitter bio says committed #attack the day, and he has a dog emoji next to the attack the day, but that's not like that's not representative of a public commitment. My assumption is that when he says he's committed to attack the day, he means he's sort of committed to the idea of attacking each day. That's the Georgia phrase. I don't know that means that he's actually committed to Georgia. I think that means that he's just sort of committed to the same sort of unifying principle that seems to define the Georgia program. Although, will he eventually be a 2019 commit for Georgia? The Magic 8 Ball would seem to suggest yes, but right now he is not a official UGA commit. Tyler Jenkins says Rambo's been flirting with Florida a lot. As it stands right now, I'm not worried about Florida with anybody. We're actually going to talk to Jeff about another guy who's currently a Florida commit today, Jaleel McCray, a pretty good linebacker out of IMG Academy. First of all, Florida's drought at IMG Academy is becoming legendary right now. So when it comes to head-to-head battles with Georgia and Florida, I'm not worried about that whatsoever. If Dan Mullen does something to change my mind, then maybe we'll sort of change our tune here on DawgNation Daily. But for right now, I am not worried about that. Tennessee up north and Jeremy Pruitt over there in Knoxville, maybe a little different story. We'll also talk to Jeff today a little bit about Wanya Morris, who has called his top to Tennessee and Auburn, Georgia not included in that. We'll kind of find out what that means from Jeff Sintel a little bit later on. But that's an example of Jeremy Pruitt being able to make some inroads in recruiting that so far Dan Mullen's just not really been able to make. Now, eventually, Florida may be a recruiting power, but right now in the head-to-head situation, I just feel pretty good about Georgia being able to do that. By the way, Al Clements checking in, saying, I live in Gainesville, Florida. I am a dog, not a gator. That's one of the reasons why we love doing DawgNation Daily and making it available in as many different mediums as we possibly can. So some of you that live in enemy territory can have a little bit of a place to congregate here. That's one of the reasons why I love doing DawgNation Daily every single day, because some of you, I hear from people in Knoxville, I hear from people in Gainesville, we hear from people, in the state of Alabama. They like the idea of being able to take a break from hearing about those nasty, stinking Gators enough to enjoy a little UGA talk. By the way, speaking of the various places you can find the show, let me switch over to YouTube for a minute. Don't forget, y'all can watch DawgNation Daily Live on the DawgNation YouTube page each and every day. Willie McGuire asked the question, do we expect anything differently from Kirby on how he handles this season from last year's? More aggressive play caller in particular. Willie, we actually talked to Seth Emerson about that a little bit yesterday. Seth had kind of made some predictions about what he thought Jake Fromm's stat line might look like for 2018. And, he did give Fromm more pass attempts. But, if you go back and look at the numbers, Georgia was almost perfectly, if you count sacks. If you count sacks in the total, Georgia, and in college football, strangely enough, they are counted as rushing plays. But if you count sacks in the total, Georgia, strangely, was almost exactly 67% run to pass last year. Does that balance change a little bit more in 2018? Obviously, Jake Fromm's going to be a much more seasoned passer. Putting aside Justin Fields here just for a moment, Fromm's a more seasoned passer. The Georgia offensive line's probably even better. Does that allow for more aggressive play calling? My likely guess on that is that the real breakthrough for the Georgia passing game maybe is hinted at a bit in 2018, but it probably happens more in 2019 when you're able to add elite wide receivers like Jaden Hazelwood and Dominic Blaylock to a group that's going to include a terrific stable of running backs and an even better offensive line. The Georgia offensive line in 2018 is going to be one of the team's strengths, one of the best in the SEC, if not one of the best in the entire country. But by the time you get to 2019, that offensive line's even better. You've got, at that point, time a junior Jake Fromm, a sophomore Justin Fields. You've got a collection of running backs that rivals anything in the country, and you're talking about being able to add the wide receiver position into that, and all of a sudden at that point in time you probably do see a much more aggressive version of Georgia. I think in terms of the mindset, though, that Kirby Smart's probably trying to establish here for 2018, things changing because of the fact that all of a sudden, guys have been on campus for a little longer, the foundation of the program a little bit more firmly established. I think that what you'll probably see from Kirby Smart on that, though, is that attempt to still maintain the status of Georgia as a hunter and not the hunted. I mean, think about what Georgia did on the very first play in the very first game after Georgia had been the number one ranked team in the college football playoff poll. The onside kick to start the game against South Carolina. To me, that was always a message that Georgia wants to be a hunter. And 2018, I think Kirby Smart's going to try to maintain that same attitude. All right, we got a lot more comments coming up for you today on DawgNation Daily. Some fun later on with Jeff Sintel. But as we get ready to begin our broadcast, we do it with Davin Bellamy, a Georgia great that y'all love. You'll love hearing from him right now as DawgNation Daily begins right now.
Presented by DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
Fun edition of DawgNation Daily coming up here today. We're getting excited about DawgNation Appreciation. It comes up on Thursday, and one of the reasons why we're getting excited about it is because of one of our special guests who's going to be there on the scene there that night, and we're lucky enough to have him here on DawgNation Daily today. It is the former Georgia outside linebacker, Davin Bellamy, to begin things off here on DawgNation Daily today. Davin, thanks for your time here on DawgNation Daily. How are you doing?
Glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, we are certainly glad to have you on the program, and obviously we want to talk to you about a lot of different things, both your preparations for the NFL draft, but also a bit of a look back here on your career at Georgia. And I think, Davin, if we were to poll Georgia fans and say, what do they remember about your final season at Georgia, what was special to them, I think the thing that would come up probably more than anything else is, and I'm sure you probably are very much aware of this, the sack that you have to kind of clinch the game against Notre Dame, come up with the strip and the football there. What did it feel like to be in that moment? Now, at the time, we didn't know that Georgia was going to make a run to the college football playoff. Maybe you suspected it, but we still had a lot of more football left to go. But to go on the road, have those thousands and thousands of Georgia fans, and kind of come up with that game-winning play, what was that like for you to be a part of that?
Man, it's crazy. Looking at our schedule before the season started, that was kind of the game that just circled, if we get over this hump, then, the season could go pretty smooth. But, we had a lot lot of trials going into the game with a freshman first starting and just so many distractions on the two teams playing. But on that last drive, man, I don't know, man. I was locked in, and I went to a different place, honestly, and I had kind of been getting the guys the same moves the whole second half, and it worked, I would say, 3 or 4 possessions prior, and I wanted to come back to it when we really needed a sack. And, I timed it up perfectly, and it really felt like a walk-off home run or a buzzer beater or something. So it's really something I can't really put in words.
Why don't we do this? We got a little bit of a cell issue with Davin. Let's put Davin on hold. Let's see if we can get a better cell for him. Davin, we'll put you on hold, and we'll be able to. We're good. All right. Are we good? All right. So yeah, Davin, good stuff there on that. And then you get a chance to wear those golden spike shoulder pads. Obviously, that's a cool moment. That's the kind of thing that would become such a big symbol for the rest of the team, the rest of the season. Was it nice to be able to kind of debut those? I guess you and your buddy Lorenzo both got to wear those that night. Was it a nice thing to be able to debut there that evening?
Yeah, man, it was really nice, man. We didn't bring the pads out, I don't think, game 1. Then when I see how cool they look on those shoulders, I was like, I gotta get that kind of ASAP. But it was, I don't know, man, just kind of a good incentive, to go get a turnover, especially when the teammates, they feel on your shoulder, and you got the shoulder pads on, you're standing, you're looking to the crowd. It's almost surreal.
Davin, we're going to put you back on hold here. We'll see if we can get you a little bit better cell signal here. I know a lot of folks want to hear from Davin Bellamy and what he's got going on there. But great stuff from Davin Bellamy. Of course, going to be with us for DawgNation Appreciation coming up on Thursday, March 15th. He'll be telling a lot of the great stories there from that season and some really good stuff from him there that evening. We'll see if we can get a better cell for Davin and see. We'll see if we can talk to him a little bit more. And one of the things that we'll do on DawgNation Appreciation Night, obviously, is kind of look back and appreciate one of the games that Davin was just talking about there, the Notre Dame game. And I think for those of us who made the trip out there and who go to South Bend and who go to see that game, at the time there was some pushback from people outside the bubble of DawgNation or kind of national media saying, well, this was just a Georgia team who only won 8 games in 2016, and this was a Notre Dame team that had come off actually a losing record in the 2016 season. And some of the hype and some of the build-up for that game, I think to some people didn't necessarily make a lot of sense because by record alone in 2016, it didn't make the 2017 game seem like that big of a deal. But I think, and I'm sure that Davin could attest to this, a lot of the Georgia players themselves could kind of attest to this, that I'm sure they saw something within the Georgia program that maybe gave them a hint that if they could go on the road, if they could get that win against Notre Dame, a team that had shown some hints themselves of being much better in 2017 they had been in 2016, that it would kind of open things up for a run through the SEC. Now, maybe at the time they didn't, or any of us knew just how much of a springboard that was going to be, and how Georgia would use the momentum of that Notre Dame game to come back home in a couple of weeks and obliterate a Mississippi State team that also had kind of gotten hot to start the season. But when you look back on the totality of the season, the way that it ends in the college football playoff, the inclusion of the SEC championship there against Auburn, the game against Notre Dame was really the sort of appetizer that set all that in motion. And while the Georgia offense, remember, that was just Jake Fromm's first game. That was his first start in a Georgia uniform, and maybe he wasn't as comfortable then as he would be really even just a couple of weeks later. But when you look at the season as a whole, you saw the Georgia defense already showing the championship mettle that it would use for the rest of the season, and an offense that would start to come together after that trip to South Bend ended. I think games like that are special because it was a chance for fans to enjoy one of the great backdrops in all of college football, but it was also a proving ground for Georgia, and one that made Georgia incredibly strong here for the rest of the 2017 season. So we'll look forward to trying to talk to Davin Bellamy about that just a little bit more here on DawgNation Daily coming up in just a little bit. We'll also have Jeff Sintel on the program coming up in just a bit too. We'll talk to Jeff a lot about the UGA recruiting landscape and kind of some interesting exciting news here as the 2019 class starts to take shape and unfold. We'll look forward to talking to Jeff about that. And, while we're on the subject of the DawgNation appreciation, let me also say this, that one of the cool things about what's been kind of going on here is, a chance to also watch these guys in their preparations for the pro day, in their preparations for, just coming back off the NFL Combine, watching these guys who are going to be with us for the DawgNation appreciation, also getting ready for their NFL future as well. And it's kind of nice to hear on DawgNation be kind of able to go alongside them on that ride a little bit too. So it sounds like we have Davin Bellamy ready to go. Why don't we do this? Can we just start the whole thing all over again? And we'll, for our video audience, y'all pardon us here as we kind of redo this, but I know you want to be able to hear what Davin Bellamy has to say, and then we'll kind of get on with the rest of DawgNation Daily. So let's get things cranked up and let's get ready to go here. A little bit better signal here to enjoy Davin Bellamy. Thanks for being with us here today on DawgNation Daily.
Presented by DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
Good to have you with us here on DawgNation Daily. Feel incredibly lucky here today as well as we get closer to DawgNation Appreciation. It's exciting to begin our show with one of our special guests for DawgNation Appreciation coming up on Thursday. It is the former Georgia linebacker Davin Bellamy. Davin, thanks for being on the program. For a little bit of a part two here, we had a little bit of a cell issue earlier, but glad to have you back on the show. Glad to be able to talk with you. How you doing today?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. Just training, still trying to get ready for my pro day on the 21st, but everything's going pretty good.
Great to hear that. We want to talk to you about what you're going to be doing here as far as your NFL preparations in a moment. Before that, though, take me back to the Notre Dame game here for a moment. You sack Brandon Wimbush, clinches the game for Georgia. There are tens upon tens of thousands of Georgia fans who are there to celebrate you in South Bend. If we ask them what do they remember about the 2017 season, a lot of them would say that moment. How do you personally remember that sack and that great moment for a great road trip for Georgia?
Yeah, man. That game actually was a game that I circled on the schedule. Was like, if we get past this game, then we may have a shot to run the tables. And we had a lot of, circumstances going to that game. Just with the two teams never playing before and having a freshman quarterback, I knew it would be a very tough one, and we would just have to sneak one out of there. But on that last play, I just locked in, man. It was a very crucial time. I had actually beat McGlinchey with the same move 3 or 4, possessions prior. So I knew I would.
Yeah, you
mentioned. So I knew I was going to come back. Hello?
I'm sorry, Davin. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So I knew I was going to come back to it right when we needed to play or needed, a sack, and I timed it up perfectly, and it was like a walk-off home run or a buzzer beater, man. Like, I don't think you can really get too many shots at that as a pass rusher to, end the game with a fumble. It's a moment I still think about to this day.
I love that description of it being a walk-off home run. I think that's almost perfect, and I think our audience totally understands that. What was it like for y'all on the field that night to look up and see so many Georgia fans? Whether it be the fourth quarter with all the phones and the lights, or the congregation of all the red while it was still daylight. What did y'all feel like looking up and seeing all those Georgia fans?
Just it was really surreal. That they came so far. To support us, and they really helped us out on defense, because usually when you're on the road and when the home team has the ball, it's pretty quiet, but the crowd lifted us up on defense, made it loud for us. Whenever we made a big play, that really helps with momentum swings, and even when the fourth quarter came and we had the lights, man, playing in such a different environment, to have so many home fans there, it kind of doesn't make you as homesick, as you would be. So that support was definitely needed.
Great stuff with former Georgia linebacker Davin Bellamy joining us here on DawgNation Daily. And don't forget, if you want to see Davin and a lot of his former Georgia teammates like Lorenzo Carter, Nick Chubb, Sonny Michel, Roquan Smith, go to DawgNation.com. You get your tickets for DawgNation Appreciation. And then, Davin, if we fast forward to the Rose Bowl, we had so much fun here on this show, the way that so many other Georgia fans did with the humble yourself. That's obviously the phrase that you've kind of made very popular here. But when you initially said that to Baker Mayfield, a lot of us were bothered by Mayfield during that game, whether it be saying it was over before it was or some of the taunting and the celebrating. I mean, what was kind of the origins of that for you? What did you notice about Mayfield during the game that made you feel like when it was all said and done, he had to be reminded to humble himself?
Well, let me start off by saying, I do respect him so much. He's a great football player. But before the game, Terry Godwin had actually came into the locker room, because the wide receivers warm up first. And he came to the locker room and said, he just ran all the way down from the other sideline to our sideline. And we were running route, and he just had the cameras around him and just jumping our way on our side of the field. And I guess Terry kind of told the defense that to kind of get us riled up. And, I don't mind trash talking, but I thought that was kind of doing the absolute most. And I didn't think all the cameras would be around after the game, so it really caught me off guard when I seen how many networks had caught it. What I mean, to me, it wasn't really talking trash. It was kind of giving some words of advice, honestly.
I think it's pretty good advice, if you ask me. And then we love what you kind of do after the fact. You trademark the phrase. You've got your Humble Yourself T-shirts now. You're actually going to be selling those at a DawgNation Appreciation on Thursday, which I think is really cool. But tell me about the ideas for the kind of the business mind here on this and the opportunity to sort of take advantage of this and have some fun with a phrase that Georgia fans themselves have also had fun with. Where did kind of all that start? Is this the kind of thing you've kind of always been interested in, or did this sort of all come to you when this moment started to build?
I've always been interested in doing clothing, but this one kind of just really just fell in my lap. I checked my phone after the Rose Bowl, and the Humble Yourself had blown up completely. I had seen other companies already made shirts, and it wasn't even 5 hours after the game. It was being talked about on all the Sports Center segues. So it really just fell in my lap. And with my eligibility coming to an end, I had a week left until the Natty. I decided to trademark it like a day after. And I knew that right when everything went through, my eligibility would be over. So I didn't hurt the team in any way possible.
Yeah.
I had a great team, behind me, great marketing team. That got the shirts out, got a nice site. And they've been doing pretty well, man. And I must say, I think most of the buys have been from Georgia fans. So once again, I appreciate all the support, and they're going to continue to do it after the fact. So I really appreciate that.
And by the way, the Humble Yourself T-shirts do look great, and Davin's going to be selling those personally at a DawgNation Appreciation on Thursday. You can meet Davin, buy one from him, and get an autograph from him while the opportunity does allow there at DawgNation Appreciation on Thursday. It's one of the reasons why we're really excited about that event. All right, let me get serious here for a moment and talk about your NFL future now. I know you've been dealing with, I guess, a little bit of a hamstring issue, that kind of prevented you from doing some of the stuff that you maybe would have liked to have done at the NFL Combine. It sounds like you're kind of all systems go towards the UGA Pro Day on March 21st. And I guess sort of give us an idea of what your preparations have been like and, both mental and physical here to kind of get ready for the kind of day where you could really make yourself a whole lot of money, as you're very well aware of.
Right, of course. Well, at the end of the day with all this, we want to leave healthy. I kind of had a hamstring injury 2 to 3 weeks prior to the Combine during my training down there in Exos. And I knew then, that I wouldn't be able to perform in the Combine. So right now, I've been working towards Pro Day for about 2 weeks before the Combine. I knew that Pro Day will be my Combine. So right now, I'm getting up in the morning. I'm working out, with Chip Smith now down in Gwinnett in the morning, and I'm also working with Chuck Smith, in the afternoon.
Sure.
Like the back work. I'm just still grinding, man. Still grinding because, like you said, that is opportunity for the scouts, to finally see me move. And, I'm very excited about it. But I'm in a good place right now. I wasn't really upset, that I come perform and come out because I know everybody will be at our pro day, even though that's an honor to be invited to, and that stage, is amazing. But God has plans for all of us.
Does it make it a little easier to kind of have Lorenzo Carter, your partner from the outside linebacker core this year at Georgia, kind of going through a lot of the same kind of stuff with you, experiencing all of this, to have somebody to kind of share some notes with, kind of compare things with?
Definitely. It is definitely needed. From the time we left the Natty, I was calling and bugging Zoe about coming and working out with me, at Exos. Me and him have been friends for 4 years, ever since he stepped on the campus. We've always tried to push each other and, just make each other better. And just having him down there at Exos and having him at the Combine, it kind of gives you a sense of home, even though you're traveling all over the place. You got your best bud with you. So it's been perfect, having him on his journey with me. He's my brother, and I couldn't be more excited for him.
Well, speaking of excited, there are a lot of Georgia fans who are also excited about seeing you at DawgNation Appreciation on Thursday. To kind of close out our interview here, how does it feel for you to have these Georgia fans who still want to celebrate with you and still want to think about what the 2017 season was? It was very special for a lot of people. What's it going to be like for you to interact with them on Thursday?
It's going to be great because this is what it's all about. Last year when all the juniors decided on coming back, we didn't want to leave this great group of fans on a 8-5 note or 8-6 note, or just like not a season to remember. So we all came back to make this season magical. Georgia fans haven't had a lot to cheer for in a long time, and this year showed us that they was with us every step of the way, and just coming back another year, that's exactly what it was all about. We don't really get a chance to interact with the fans like that during the season, so I'm excited to finally do that and, finally put some faces with these great names who I've been meeting on Twitter a little bit.
Yeah, that's well said, Davin. We're excited about seeing you on Thursday for DawgNation Appreciation. Thanks for your time here on DawgNation Daily. We look forward to seeing Humble Yourself T-shirts all over the world of DawgNation here as well, coming up very soon too, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Yes, sir, man. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Good stuff there from Davin Bellamy. Great way to start DawgNation Daily, and you know what? We got a lot more fun to come starting right now. And my name is Brandon Adams. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. If you're watching us, thanks for doing so. Facebook, YouTube, you can find the show on video every morning at 10 a.m., our radio audience at noon on Athens Sports Radio 960 Rev. We appreciate you being with us, of course, in podcast form. Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Android devices, the world-famous DawgNation.com. We just try to make DawgNation Daily as easy for you to find as possible. Can't wait to see you on Thursday for DawgNation Appreciation. You just heard Davin Bellamy right there, another one of those great personalities that makes this event coming up so much fun. You go to DawgNation.com to get your tickets. Of course, VIP tickets already gone for this, but you still have an opportunity to win a pair courtesy of our friends at Marlowe's. You can text the word Marlowe's, that's M-A-R-L-O-W-S, no apostrophe, M-A-R-L-O-W-S, to 24242 now all the way through March 13th. For your chance to win a pair of VIP tickets to a DawgNation Appreciation. The VIP tickets include an autograph from Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and Roquan Smith, plus a picture with all three of those guys. That's a part of our VIP experience for DawgNation Appreciation. They are sold out, but you can still win a pair courtesy of Marlowe's. When you text Marlowe's to 24242, you'll get a link back. You can register. The winner is going to be drawn at noon on March 14th, and as I said, registration closes on March 13th for that. By the way, we've got Jeff Sintel coming up on our program here today. Before we do that, let me also get ready to do our Kroger Click List checklist. And it is a busy weekend for UGA athletics, including here today, as the SEC tournament continues, with Georgia still alive in that against the Kentucky Wildcats. Many of you will have already seen the game by the time you hear this show, but that does come up today. That's part of our Kroger Click List checklist. Diamond Dogs also hosting Toledo this weekend. A little bit of a schedule change there. The Sunday game has been changed to a doubleheader on Saturday because of some impending weather there in Athens for Sunday, so a little bit of a Diamond Dog schedule change. And don't forget, the Lady Dogs will find out their fate for the NCAA tournament. They are in, but who are they playing and where will the game be? They'll find all that out on Monday. That's all a part of our Kroger Click List checklist. And speaking of Kroger, coming up tomorrow, General Mills cereal for just 99 cents. You can download the coupon at Kroger.com or the Kroger app through March 10th. Redeem in stores only, tomorrow only. So a great deal on some General Mills cereal at Kroger. Make sure you check that out. Of course, great to have Kroger as part of our Kroger Click List checklist here each and every Friday on DawgNation Daily. By the way, we're going to have a lot more on the Georgia basketball game against Kentucky, both on our radio show on 960 The Rev and as a part of our DawgNation Daily Double, which you can find at the forum at forum.dawgnation.com. And when we link the show at dawgnation.com a little later on, too, on that. So very busy when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's also would not be a Friday without Jeff Sintel. We'll get ready to welcome him into the program here in just a moment as the 2019 class continues to take shape for Georgia, or also around the SEC here as well. Georgia making a move on a Florida commit. We'll tell you about that. Tennessee trying to make inroads on a offensive lineman from the state of Georgia. What's going on there? We'll kind of deal with all that with Jeff Sintel. It's great to have you with us as a part of DawgNation Daily. Look forward to seeing you at DawgNation Appreciation coming up on Thursday. Jeff Sintel's going to be there. He wants to meet you personally. And speaking of Jeff, let's talk to him right now.
From Athens and across the SEC or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
Jeff Sintel, happy Friday to you. Thanks for being back on our program here today, DawgNation Daily. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've got a great weekend planned. What is on your calendar for the upcoming weekend, Jeff? You got a big agenda here?
I'm going to try and lose some golf balls. That's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and lose some golf balls. And if that's my plan, if they actually go in the hole or near the hole, then that's an even better day.
That sounds like a pretty good day for sure. Speaking of good days, Georgia's also had some of those in the recruiting trail a lot here as of late, and hoping for another one maybe with Jaleel McCray, the linebacker from IMG Academy. You wrote about him this week, and I got to tell you, Jeff, this is a young man, already 230 pounds, a chance to hurt Florida's feelings here a little bit. There is a lot to like about Jaleel McCray if you're a Georgia fan, is there not?
Yeah, there is, especially he's already calls the coaches father figures. He likes that look about Athens, and he could really probably hurt maybe a double play tearjerker because Georgia Tech is probably on him the hardest right now. But with Jaleel, former Florida commitment, 6'2", 230 at IMG, I kind of wonder, his size kind of tells me he's definitely going to be an inside backer at Georgia. He actually played his freshman year and got most of his early offers at safety. So this is a young man that's just kept on growing. But I wonder, and hopefully our DawgNation listeners are as informed as I think they are, and you hear Jaleel McCray and you start thinking inside linebacker, and then Georgia fans will immediately think, hold on, J.D. Bertrand, hold on, Trezmon Marshall, hold on, Owen Popo. Where does he fit in the class? That's probably a very good question. But here you have it, the nation's number 7 outside linebacker, probably an inside linebacker at Georgia. Number 113 player overall. Really likes what he's hearing from Georgia right now.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And like you said, that's a crowded sort of recruitment for Georgia when you mention some of the other names, including uncommitted prospects like, Marshall and Owen Popo. But still kind of interesting to think about, Georgia being in the mix more, some of those guys there at IMG Academy. Let me talk to you about Wanya Morris for a minute here, the Grayson offensive lineman. He drops his top 2 this week, does not include Georgia on Twitter. He kind of had to, put out that edit the way they do these times of year. You see the Auburn logo, you see the Tennessee logo. In the text there, he goes on to kind of explain why it is that he chose Auburn and Tennessee as his top 2 here. What does this mean for Georgia? Is this a situation where Georgia's good with offensive linemen, given what it's done the last couple of recruiting cycles? Is this one of those situations where Sam Pittman stays on Wanya Morris here? How does the dropping of the top 2 impact Georgia and Wanya Morris here?
Yeah, that was a very interesting one because I think A lot of the Grayson guys are just really trying to nail down a lot of their thoughts. But, I mean, it shows you how crazy recruiting gets, Brandon, because I spoke to Wanye probably, I think it was January the 5th, and it kind of sounded like, you know, Georgia was one of his ride-or-die schools. I thought Oklahoma was probably going to be a contender, Florida State, as well as Auburn and Tennessee. So it's interesting how things have kind of changed that way, in that manner, so quickly with Wanye Morris. And I don't have any on-the-record thoughts on Wanye Morris about that. But to me, for things to change so fast, so soon with Wanye Morris, it might indicate to me that Georgia is not pursuing him as heavily as some of those other schools, especially schools like Auburn and Tennessee currently are. And you got to remember, like Auburn's tried to load up on tackles the way Georgia did back in Sam Pittman's first year. They probably need to grab about 3. They're also going after Amari Kite, the guy that Georgia has targeted out of Alabaster, Alabama, as well. That's the nation's number 15 offensive tackle. So Wanye Morris, guy that likes to dance all over the field, got lots of dance moves and pregame warm-ups that he camps. Right now is looking to go to the SEC East or the SEC West, and one of those schools is not Georgia.
So talk to me about the strategy here for a moment on this, because obviously, you know, we have been kind of around and round about, you know, a school like Grayson High School, a county like Gwinnett before. That's a rich, fertile soil that I don't believe the previous coaching administration got enough out of. I got tired of watching players from Grayson go other places for a long time. That's obviously changed now under Kirby Smart. But when a guy like Wanye Morris, if he's not a recruiting priority for Georgia, just hypothetically speaking, and, you know, a Jeremy Pruitt kind of gets an inroad there into that Grayson program, does that potentially impact other recruits at a school like that? Because there have been a lot at Grayson. They probably stand to be a lot more in the years ahead. Do you have to worry about, you know, if a recruit that maybe is not a top priority for you ends up going somewhere else, that another coach comes in and establishes that relationship in that school? Obviously, Pruitt's a first-time head coach. He's certainly looking to do that because of how talent-rich Grayson has been historically.
Well, I would think with Grayson, you got to remember they have a guy by the name of D'Angelo Gibbs who's already on campus at Georgia. They've got a guy that they're really zeroing in by the name of Owen Popo. And I know your feelings, Brandon, about, you know, losing a foothold or losing strength or gaining strength in a powerhouse like Grayson High School. But, you know, I think these are just individual boiled down situations. I think Auburn and Tennessee, the ability for Wanye to come in and play right away is a lot clearer, and those coaches are recruiting him that kind of parallel that dire need for a talent like Wanye Morris, who by anybody's measure is a top 5, top 10 offensive tackle for 2019. And that's just something to consider. Wanye Morris wants to study computers, maybe likes the academic fit a little bit better at other schools, along with that football fit. So to me, it's pretty simple if you know recruiting. If Wanye Morris soured on Georgia, or Georgia kind of let up a little bit in its pursuit of Wanye Morris, one way or the other, the University of Georgia has other tackles in mind, and they have other prospects in mind to play tackle. Keep in mind, Georgia already has Luke Griffin, 2019 tackle, committed. He's been committed for eons. He's had a couple of knee surgeries, but you got to remember, Luke Griffin has been with Georgia before the Gator Hater countdown got past teenage days, I think. So, got to remember, I don't know if Georgia's going to need more than 1 or 2 tackles left in 2019, and they're big-time names. Devontae Dobbs, is he a guard? Is he a tackle? That's another guy to think about there for tackle. If it's not Wanye Morris, it would be a name like that.
I like the analysis that's up at DawgNation.com of Chris Smith, the 4-star defensive back, who's obviously a 2018 signee for Georgia. You were able to kind of go and get some, you know, coaches, some experts, some smart people kind of within the industry to kind of watch some of his film and sort of give some unfettered comments about what they like about him. You've done this with other prospects. You'll do it a lot more as we head towards the 2018 season on the field. And boy, you know, when you read what these coaches and these guys are saying about Chris Smith, I mean, the one thing it kind of reminds me of, Jeff, is just how much I've grown to like this young man. We've had a chance to interview him twice. We had him at one of our Marlowe's events. You and I also saw him at the Touchdown Club of Atlanta event. And when I talked to Chris there that night, the 2018 signee for Georgia, I mean, he was chomping at the bit, and you know this to be true yourself, that he was wishing he was an early enrollee. He couldn't stand the thought of still being in high school while other guys were in that Georgia weight room every single day getting bigger. Obviously, that's what some scouts and some coaches are saying about him, that he needs to add some weight here. But I absolutely have great confidence that Smith's going to do that, just based on the sort of energy and enthusiasm he showed up at the idea of wanting to be on Georgia's campus as quickly as he could be.
He's a guy that, even though I think he ended up the nation's number 30 corner, Brandon, he's a guy that, maybe is a guy that every time I see him compete and play, he's just trying to get his first star. That's what it feels like. He's trying to prove himself, and that attitude's going to carry him a long way in life because it's unwavering. And what we did with that feature is sometimes you can give the cloak of anonymity or no attribution, and you can really get the unvarnished truth, and you can call it the good, bad, or the ugly. But I think the skinny on Chris Smith is basically the great, the very good, the good, and then the skinny, because when you want people to knock him, they say, well, maybe the ball skills are not elite. He just needs to put on weight. He needs to be the slot corner, the nickel corner, matched up on that inside quick guy, especially early on in the SEC until he gets to be around 190, 195 pounds. You got a pretty thorough breakdown. Everybody just stressed his aggressiveness and his physicality, the way he likes to get after guys, the way he will talk to guys, and maybe why he will play to the echo of the whistle and give an extra hard shove out of bounds. He really wants to intimidate his opponent.
Well, it's kind of funny. I don't get a chance to meet all these guys personally the way that you do. You're obviously, you develop relationships with all these guys. I'm, for the most part, just sort of live in the studio my entire life. And so I have a tendency to focus solely on the numbers sometimes, where you ranked, what are your measurables. I have a tendency to sort of stay fixated on some of the data. You kind of get to know the personalities a little bit more. And when you do get to know Chris's personality, you do see how a guy like that, and there are examples of this in every single, recruiting class, not just for Georgia, but for all programs. You do see some examples of how a guy could confound his recruiting ranking. And in Chris Smith's case, he seems like the kind of guy who, he's a super nice guy, so don't get me wrong on this, but he does have that little bit of a chip on his shoulder where, as you said, he's always trying to prove something. And from a football standpoint, that's a pretty good attitude to have, is it not?
Yeah, Smith is one of those guys. I think when those rankings to me are kind of like the opening line in my evaluation, or how some really smart football people look at about 5 minutes of film and maybe 5 minutes at a camp and really size up how good this guy can be. I think a great example is Kyle Hamilton, the guy we wrote about this week on DawgNation. I think he's one of the top 15 players in the state this year, bar none, and yet a lot of his recruiting rankings have him as the number 126 player on the composite. They have him as the number 82 safety. A couple of days later, he moves up to the number 91 player in Georgia, the number 69 safety, I believe, something like that. So it's an example here. Chris is a guy that I feel this way about. Kyle is the guy the way I feel this about. There's some guys who have all the measurables in the world, and they couldn't play dead in The Walking Dead. And then there are guys that don't have the measurables, but you just know the type of competitor Chris Smith is, and you would stick him in when the game is on the line in just about any situation, because they're going to handle all aspects of the way they play the football game, the mental, the physical, the mindset, the composure. I've seen Chris Smith get beat at the opening, and I've seen Chris just flush that thing, play the next play, avoid the roller coaster of what it takes to be a big-time football player. And the mental ability of these kids is something that stands out. And Chris Smith is a guy. I looked it up. He's the fifth lowest rated recruit in Georgia's 26-man signing class, and you got to remember, nation's number one class, so the number 21 out of number 26 is going to look pretty stinking good. But with Chris Smith, all these intangibles, all these things beyond the game, is why a lot of people, a lot of analysts like myself, quickly put his name into maybe the most underrated or most slept-on players for Georgia in the class of 2018. And we're talking about a 4-star cornerback with this class when we do so.
You mentioned D'Angelo Gibbs earlier. That's a guy we've talked about before, currently not going through classes for Georgia this spring. But the one thing that you've been steadfast on is you believe that he's still going to be able to have a really good career at Georgia. That's not the kind of guy that you think Dog fans ought to be selling their stock on. And then the video comes out this week of he and Natress Patrick, a part of that Boys and Girls Club event in Athens. That would seem to be a sign that what you've been saying and what I've been believing as well is true, that Gibbs still has a place on Georgia's football team, even if he's not currently going to to classes, and that Natrez Patrick's also probably going to find his way back there as well. I think for Georgia fans who want more of Patrick and Gibbs, they probably got themselves some good news this week, right?
Well, they got some way to feel better about it. You know, I'm definitely not going to sell any stock on D'Angelo Gibbs, and I wouldn't advise anybody out there to as well. Spring practice is important. Spring practice is important for young players, especially. But I think there's some examples now, Trenton Thompson, Roquan Smith, where spring practice is not crucial to a player's development, especially when you're rehabbing an injury or overcoming something of a different aspect. So, you know, D'Angelo Gibbs, I still think he's going to have a bright career at the University of Georgia, and he's just going through a portion right now where he's got to work his way back onto the team. You remember, everybody that worries about D'Angelo Gibbs and not being enrolled, there's always the Maymester, and there's always the fact that D'Angelo enrolled early back in January of 2017 as an early enrollee, true freshman. So I think he's going to be okay on the credit side, and he's obviously a very intelligent kid as well.
Hey, Jeff, stick with me just for 1 minute because I want to let people know about a great feature of DawgNation Appreciation on Thursday. It comes from our friends at Kroger here. It's an opportunity to ask a Kroger fan question, to have your question answered by Davin Bellamy, who we just heard from, Lorenzo Carter, Nick Chubb, Sony Michelle, and Roquan Smith. I think we have an email address that we can show you, or I'll also read it to you if you're listening or either the podcast or the radio show. Just submit your Kroger fan question to be used at DawgNation Appreciation. If your question is read on the stage there that night, you're also going to receive a $25 gift card from our friends at Kroger. Just simply submit your question at KrogerFanQuestion@gmail.com. It's KrogerFanQuestion@gmail.com. That's obviously an email address. Send your question there, and you can potentially be heard on the stage there that night at a DawgNation Appreciation, and also win a $25 gift card from Kroger. Jeff, I know as we get ready to say goodbye to you here on this Friday, I know you're just as excited as I am about DawgNation Appreciation on Thursday. It is legitimately going to be the biggest event we've done here at DawgNation and on DawgNation Daily, and I can't wait for it. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Going to be a great event. Going to be a lot of dog people getting around to hunker down one more time for the 2018 team, and I was able to throw away a ticket or two, give away a ticket or two, to throw into them, some of our listeners on Wednesday Night Live. If they knew their dogs and they knew a trivia question. But I even asked them a question, man. I asked them, which one of those Bulldogs was the first to commit to the University of Georgia? I don't even know if you can give me that answer on the spot, could you?
Actually, I don't know that I would know that on the spot. I know it's not Roquan. He was probably the last, I guess, or at least from his 2015 class, the last. Was it Lorenzo?
No, sir. It was Lorenzo was a signing day guy.
That's
it was
right.
Davin Bellamy.
Okay.
Davin humbled himself in the class of 2013, and Sony and Nick were in the class of 2014. Little known fact, Sony actually committed to Georgia before Nick Chubb, and I'll leave you guys with that.
That's really good stuff, Jeff. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
Good stuff there from Jeff Sintel. Yeah, how quickly you forget some of that stuff over the course of years. Listen, I'm lucky if I can remember what I had for lunch yesterday. So really fun stuff with Jeff Sintel, and good for him giving away some DawgNation Appreciation tickets there on his own broadcast. By the way, I guess that means we need to do something like that here on our show. Of course, Marlo is helping us in that regard with the VIP ticket giveaway. Maybe we can wrestle up some other tickets to give away here next week on DawgNation Daily a little bit, too. I want to also comment on one more thing that Jeff Sintel just said there. Before that, though, let me remind you about how you can actually see me if you want to, but also have a great time coming up in just a few days. It's a part of the Atlanta International Auto Show. You can shop, compare from hundreds of new cars, trucks, SUVs from over 25 major manufacturers. You can also see debuting models for 2019, the latest in alternative fuel vehicles, great special attractions, a whole lot more. It's just once a year, and it's 5 big days from March 21st through the 25th at the Georgia World Congress Center. You can go to GoAutoShow.com. The website, once again, GoAutoShow.com for more details. I'll be there on Friday, March the 23rd from 1 to 3 p.m. I'd love to have you come by and see me. You can also bring your kids. They're like Star Wars vehicles to see. There's like Marvel action figures, sort of like mascot type. It's a really cool event. GoAutoShow.com. You can find out more details about that. Jeff, before we get to the SEC, there was talking about spring practice. Now, lately we've seen some guys not go through spring practice, and they've been fine. Trent Thompson is an example of that. You may also say the same thing about Jared Stidham, who's currently not going through Auburn spring practice, although he probably will practice before they officially finish up. That is true. And so from that standpoint, D'Angelo or Natrez, in this case it would be D'Angelo, missing spring practice, probably not that big of a deal. There are also some examples of missing spring practice ending up being a clue about things not going well. You know, Kyle Davis missed Auburn spring practice last year, the wide receiver. He's no longer with the program. Arden Key missed LSU spring practice a year ago. He had a pretty disappointing final season there at LSU, at least in comparison to a guy that was hoping to be and is still hoping to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. So spring practice, when you miss it, occasionally not that big of a deal. It seemed to work out fine for Trent Thompson, but it's also the kind of thing that's not always the easiest thing to sort of, you know, gloss over and sweep underneath the rug. A couple of SEC examples sort of prove the opposite there. All right, SEC through time now. Make sure you check out SEC Country Live on Monday. I won't be there, but there'll still be a show 3 p.m. Eastern time on the SEC Country Facebook and YouTube pages. I'll be back the following Monday. One of the stories I'm sure they will get into, though, is Jalen Hurts paying off his bet with Charles Barkley. You may remember going back to Barkley's appearance on WJOX, the radio station there in Birmingham. He talked about a bet with Hurts. In fact, we'll show you some of the video here of Hurts. If Auburn had beaten Alabama, Hurts was going to have to wear the Auburn jersey. Well, indeed, in the video, that's exactly what Jalen Hurts does. If you're watching us on video, you can see this. I'll obviously describe it for those of you listening to the show. He's got the Auburn jersey on. He's kind of talking, saying, I'm here to pay off my bet. Then at the end, there's a punchline where he says, okay, I've got to go to class. Let me grab my book bag. He grabs an Alabama backpack, and as he walks away, you see the Alabama backpack has the College Football Playoff National Championship trophy. Obviously, Jalen's a good sport there to put the Auburn jersey on. And also, you know, sort of make light of a game in itself. I guess that he didn't finish off his quarterback. So all in all, it is a little weird to see a star for Alabama wearing a jersey for Auburn. But the truth is, I got to give Hurts a lot of credit for this. I think it's actually pretty funny the way that he kind of played this off. So well done there by Alabama. I don't say that a lot here on DawgNation Daily, but the actual video itself is pretty entertaining and pretty funny. One of the things we talked about yesterday on SEC Country Live was Ed Orgeron's comments to another radio station, 104.5 The Zone there in Louisiana. One of the hosts is T-Bob Hebert, former LSU star, very good player. Orgeron told the audience there that he really thinks they're going to find their quarterback in 2019, and he went so far as to say that, you know, this is the quarterback that LSU fans have been waiting for a while, or something along those lines. We played the audio yesterday. I think Orgeron's going to be careful here about overselling. I think what he says in this regard kind of comes across sounding a little bit like an inexperienced, unseasoned coach. Now, Orgeron does have head coaching experience. He was the guy at Ole Miss. That was a long time ago. For a program that doesn't get nearly as much attention, you know, on a daily basis as LSU does, I think Orgeron, to the extent that these, you know, words may reverberate through LSU Nation, I think he may eventually regret saying that, because I think he sets the bar awful high for the 2019 quarterback for LSU. Miles Brennan, Lowell Narcisse, I'm not sure either guy is capable of living up to that. I thought it was interesting that ESPN, one of their articles about college football teams feeling the excitement heading into the 2018 season, one of the schools they mentioned is Texas A&M. For me, this is an example of Jimbo Fisher's impact on College Station. You know, that sort of bottom four we typically think of in the SEC West. I think A&M wants to move out of that territory. I think they want a lot more attention. I think they are feeling the excitement. We're going to hear from them a lot more in the SEC in years to come. We'll make that your SEC through. And as I mentioned a little early in the show, great day here to check out our DawgNation Daily Double. We'll have it up for you at the forum at forum.dawgnation.com. Also a link to our podcast when we post it at dawgnation.com. You know, a lot more on Georgia's basketball game today against Kentucky, including I'm going to play a little audio from one SEC basketball analyst explaining why he thinks that Georgia's got a chance to maybe do pretty well against Kentucky this afternoon. By the time you hear the show, you may already know what happens there. But interesting stuff. DawgNation Daily Double. Make sure you check that out. Also, we continue to get really excited about DawgNation Appreciation. When you hear great stuff there from Davin Bellamy, how could you not be excited? What a great event this is going to be. Davin's going to be a huge part of that. Please go to dawgnation.com. Get your tickets. My understanding is the premium tickets, which include either a Chubb, Michelle, or Roquan autograph, they are very, very close to gone. So act quickly to make sure you get those. And, of course, Gator Hater Countdown. We hate those nasty, stinking Gators. And 232 days from now, Georgia beats them again. See you Monday on DawgNation Daily. And on video, our time is virtually gone here. We had a little bit of a false start with Davin that kind of ate up into some of our time. So let me just say to our friends watching on Facebook and on YouTube, thanks so much for being with us. Let me see if there's one or two very quick ones I can get before we get ready to go. Philip Jordan Wells says, let's cheer for the blind squirrel of basketball today. Yeah, how about that? Maybe Eddie the blind squirrel could find himself a nut in St. Louis and see Georgia beat Kentucky. I don't mind that. It's a pretty good idea. Really fun stuff. Robert Barnes also on Facebook says it feels so good to be a Dog today. Got to the championship, have the #1 recruiting class, and have another great group of young men returning from last year's team. Knocked on the door for now. It's time to kick it in. Great comment, Robert Barnes. Great way to finish off the week in terms of Facebook comments here on DawgNation Daily. Let me also say hello to our friends on YouTube one more time, including Enrique Murillo, kind of talking about the status for D'Angelo Gibbs. I think things are looking in a good direction for D'Angelo Gibbs. Enrique Murillo also saying great insight from Jeff Sintel with the recruits. It's one of the reasons why we love having Jeff on. We do it twice a week here on DawgNation Daily. He is a great, great guest. And what y'all don't realize behind the scenes, Jeff's on the recruiting trail today. He's at a school. He's doing interviews. He's squeezing our interview in with his own conversations with the recruits. But Jeff is always tireless about making time for us and making DawgNation Daily fun. We're really glad to have him. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. Sorry we didn't have more comments at the end, but we did do a good many at the beginning, which was kind of fun today. We're back on Monday, of course, at 10 a.m. Love to see you there. And if you haven't gotten your tickets yet for DawgNation Appreciation, I cannot wait to see you on Thursday. I'm really excited about this, y'all. The folks who are working to make this event go so well, you would not believe the effort that's going into this. I'm really, really proud to put our DawgNation stamp on this event, and I cannot wait to see you there for it. So y'all have a great weekend. Hope the weather's good where you are. Root on the dogs in the hardwood today, and we'll see you on Monday once again on DawgNation Daily. Talk to you soon.